Hello everyone, my name is Sinus. Welcome to the channel. If you're new here, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button and please go ahead and like the video because it really helps out a bunch. For those of you who have seen my previous videos, a couple things. One, I definitely cut my hair because it was already down here and is now cut. Feels amazing. Also, I got a new desk, which means I don't have a clamp to situate this mic on a mic stand as well as a nice camera stand. So as of current, I only have my Logitech Brio and my hands to hold this microphone. So I'm going to be doing that for the duration of this video. But I wanted to go over something that I saw on Ghastly's Instagram. And Ghastly is a DJ who plays a lot in Los Angeles. I've seen him a bunch of times and he writes a lot of great music. And so I thought that it would be good to just go over what he wrote in this Instagram post. So let me pull that up really quick. Here is his Instagram post. And before we get into it further, it basically covers how artists that write music or anything like that need to be constantly engaging in a very toxic way. Now that that's covered, we'll go into the actual post itself, and we'll go in detail and how it can relate and showcase the way that the music industry is heading, if it's getting worse, if it's getting better, and things like that. So let's go into it. The current music industry / culture as a whole is in a very confusing place. It feels as though artistry has been shifted from genuine expression and creating sounds that express what words cannot to hacking the algorithm. So I think what essentially he's saying is that artists are straying away from creating and trying to evolve sounds in a way that's engaging to the audience, and instead trying to find the ways that best go into the algorithms of these different channels to promote themselves and grow their following and try and exploit that. But by doing that, doing the thing that achieves the most by simply knowing how these algorithms work and getting popular that way instead of focusing on the artistry and the musicality and the creativity behind it. This approach ceases the intent of being genuine, as the main focus is always numbers and engagement over quality and creativity. Yeah, so at the end of the day, what the focus becomes instead is just how much you can amass, how many people can follow you at the end of the day, instead of creating genuine content that people will engage with. So it's about putting yourself out there as much as possible and then trying to get as much reach as possible and knowing how that will trend in certain platforms, whether it's TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, whatever, instead of trying to create something that's so unique that it sparks interest instead. And I think that's where that statement comes from. I was working on a song with someone recently who asked me if I could make the beat more TikTok-y. It made me feel dirty just to read. TikTok is one of the biggest platforms, if not the biggest platform for social media ever as of current. It makes sense that you want your song or your expression to be friendly for TikTok, the biggest platform that's out there. However, what it does, it essentially sanitizes the song into a friendly, polished, but very squeaky clean, factory made type of song or type of art, instead of just creating the most interesting thing that you can think of, regardless of how it does on social media or on Instagram. But if it challenges you as a person, or if it challenges the listener, and even if it doesn't reach as many people on TikTok or anything like that, it might be better overall just to have more unique things that go on overall. But it is what it is, and that's not to say that songs that are trending on TikTok or trending on these platforms aren't bad songs, or they're not good songs either. I mean, you get a mixture of both. You get good songs and bad songs that trend. So regardless of how it hacks the system or not, you can make an argument that creative stuff does get sent out there into the ether, and you do see it and you do listen to it. But at the same time, there's a certain way that you manufacture success on these platforms. I mean, there are certain artists that that create art that's not really art, but it's meant to just simply get notoriety on these platforms, and you understand that these people exist. And so this part is true completely. It's no wonder so many new artists are struggling to develop a following. The pace at which they are now required to pump out content is inhuman and unrealistic, given the modern attention span is less than a goldfish. Yeah, so new artists are now expected to pump out not only music at a very high rate, but they're also meant to pump out content at a really high rate. Whether it's content that's related to the music, content that is just funny, content that just puts themselves out there. There's this new expectation that people have in this day and age where you need to be constantly on all the time. You need to be engaged, you need to be on your phone, you need to be responding to people, you need to be active at all times. And the expectation is that you do this in order to grow, because if you're gone even for a day or two, that's foreign to everyone nowadays. It's a completely unknown idea. They expect you to constantly engage with the audience because you have access to it and people want entertainment as quickly as possible. I mean, if you look at TikTok does have long form content, but it's nothing in the sense of like what YouTube does or what all these other platforms do. It focuses on short form content, which is good, it's fine, but it also shortens attention spans. The feed is so fast and there's so much coming at you all the time that your focus is just to be standing out at all times and be entertaining all the time. People who are big on TikTok, sometimes they just need to be pumping out material all the time, and that can be really taxing. So having someone whose focus is to make music, having them pump out a bunch of content all the time, 24/7, that's crazy. That's a lot to do. And especially if you're a new artist, because you don't have a lot of resources at your disposal. You might be coming from nothing and have no money being loaded in from your content. You don't have money or revenue streams coming in because you're a new artist and you're expected to not only create art and create music that's, that makes you stand out and makes you interesting and makes you different, but you also have to make like visual content that is engaging and interesting and appealing and, really good for the algorithms overall. So that way you have a fighting chance against everybody else who has the same ability, the same platforms. It's all free to upload on all of these platforms. So everyone can do it. And it's your job to stand out amongst everybody on the entire planet who has the same access, the same resource. The expectation is if you don't do it, I mean, who are you really? Like you're not existing. You're not there. The necessity to make content is even higher now because the threshold to make content is so low, and that can be truly exhausting as a creative person. I mean, if you want to put your emphasis on something, you should put your emphasis on the music and then promote that occasionally. You don't have to be on all the time and engage, but that's what he's saying here. I feel for new artists truly because musical success has become inflationary. Whereas a viral song could do you wonders just a few years ago, but now? Well, that's a great song you have there, but I need you to give me a reason why I should care about you. What are your thoughts? Who are you dating? Do you make entertaining content? Are you following the trends? There you go. And the worst part is, if you decide to live in the real world and choose not to post for a while, the automatic assumption is that you are depressed or going through it, which the contrary is true because the less I focus on my phone, the more creative and alive I feel. So, to unpack all of that, the necessity to constantly upload your entire life on all these platforms, especially if you're a new artist that's on the rise and you don't have access to, PR people, and you don't have access to, people who will film you or anything like that. You are on your own. You have teams behind you, but you can't really pay anybody. You have to get like your friends or your family to do it, and that you can't sustain that. That's unsustainable. And especially at the rate that a lot of these top tier artists have. The rate that they post is insane. You need to constantly be posting things like, what are your thoughts? Are you dating? Do you make entertaining content? These weren't expectations of artists, back in the day. They would get asked these questions in like magazines, If they were famous enough, they would get asked like, who are you dating? And they follow them, and the paparazzi would follow them around and things like that. But nowadays, you're kind of expected just to upload that stuff and not have someone whose job it is to do that, but your job is not to do that. Your job is now to tell everyone who you're with. Can you make entertaining material? So you have to film your own stuff, come up with your own ideas. On top of that, write engaging music. A lot of the time, it's this juggling act that just doesn't end with a person's sanity. It deteriorates their mental health overall. And then you see all these artists that, say that they're burnt out. It could be these multiple things that you need to sustain just to be somewhat relevant in this world. And it's just not a sustainable economy to be able to do that. The less I focus on my phone, the more creative and alive I feel. I can relate to this in a way that the less I'm engaging with my phone, the better I feel as a person overall. You feel more human when you find time or find the ability to disconnect. But people think that you just disappear and don't exist. There are ways that people, rationalize why someone wouldn't be on their phone 24/7. It's a foreign thing. It's really strange. It's like you have the internet and you have the entire world in your pocket. Like, why would you give that up? But then if you do that, like let's say your phone dies and you're not near a charger, you don't have your charger with you, or you just choose to leave your phone at home if you drive somewhere or go somewhere or something like that, you just don't want to engage with your phone, the world feels a lot different. It's a wild concept to think that people, maybe 10, 20 years ago, they felt this way. They still had cell phones, of course, but even go back further, when they didn't have cell phones, and you have to think about it, like people, back in the day, they just felt this way all the time. There was no way to actively engage with the world in an instant the way that we do. Even, a couple years ago, you had your internet that if you accidentally clicked on it, you'd have to immediately cancel because, you get charged. And the internet was so slow that it was basically like dial-up on your phone. It was so bad. It was so bad. But now things have changed. There's cameras and equipment and microphones, and there's all the equipment that you need on your phone to be able to create content and to make stuff. People make whole albums on their phone. People are photographers, paid photographers with their phone. There's a whole movie shot on like an iPhone 6 or something like that. The threshold to make content is so low that people just expect everything from you now. And so for artists, I think that just makes you not want to create art as much as, you need to create all these other things too. Instead of just having you focus on one thing and make that really good, you now have to focus on like 5 different things and make sure all of them are good too. And anyone who's gone to school knows, and when you choose your classes, if you spread yourself too thin, you're not going to do that great in all of them because you don't have a lot of time to do everything well, unless you focus on a couple things that you can do really, really well. And that's the problem here, because creativity is something that I feel you need to put a lot into to stand out. Some people are just really, naturally gifted and don't really need to do that. But for the most part, in my opinion, if you truly are creative, that needs sole attention. And so being the proprietor of all of these things like entertainment and putting your thoughts out there and all this stuff, it draws away from the art. I want to be able to share my life at a level that makes sense to me as an artist and as a human. I love to make sketches, tell stories, create ridiculous edits / memes, and even the occasional YouTube video. But the anxiety of having daunting to-do lists, hundreds of unread emails, deadlines, due dates, logistical issues, video / photo shoots, daily meetings, and an ever-increasingly cutthroat flash-in-the-pan media marketing bonanza can absolutely drain an artist to their lowest levels. And here is basically what it boils down to. As a creative person, you can feel free to make anything you want, like these sketches, these stories, and YouTube videos, and songs, or whatever the case may be. You have a lot of responsibilities that you need to follow through with. I think, in my opinion, a lot of the stuff that's listed here, I think just needs to be done as an artist. Basic, like, I need to put myself out there, this is what I have to do, and yes, this stuff does suck, but I think overall this stuff, besides the flash in the pan media marketing bonanza, it will drain you overall as an artist, but I think this is like a necessary evil that comes with being an artist. If you have someone to run this stuff behind the scenes, like a manager or something like that, then this stuff can be offloaded to them. But if you're your own manager, then you have to do a lot of this logistical crap that no one likes to do, really, unless you're a manager, in which case you get paid to do it, so why not? But as a creative, this is not stuff you really want to deal with overall. It is a little wild to have to figure that stuff out, because that's not really what you get into the game for. You don't really try and become a musician so you can figure out how to solve logistical issues, you know what I mean? Or be in meetings every day. That's not your goal. That your goal is to write music and be awesome at writing music and write the craziest thing and the most unique sounding thing, and figuring out deadlines is not something you want to do. Let's just put it that way. But when you're really big at this level, you have this kind of responsibility to take on, unfortunately, which does suck, but that's just how it is, I think. I need to get this off my chest because I know I can't be the only one feeling this way. About 10,000 other people do. I simply want to open up the idea that maybe we should change the way we view this whole social media landscape. I agree. To rearrange what we value not only as creators but as listeners, to actually close our eyes, take our time, and listen to the music and let the magic it's capable of take place without the never-ending urgency to find a song that's even better. What he's essentially saying is that we should take less emphasis on social media and use that emphasis to focus not only as a creator but as a listener to what makes music amazing. What I've noticed, in my opinion, and how a lot of people listen as well, is that music has become something that you put in the background and not necessarily something that we actively listen to. I think we reserve active listening for a select few things, but for the majority of people, I think it's something that just sits in the back, is a nice thing that you might enjoy the sound of overall, but it doesn't need to be as challenging for the listener as it used to be, as maybe it used to be. But I don't want to sound like a boomer that says that music was better back in the day, because there's always music that existed just to be entertainment for for everybody to enjoy, and is not meant to be actively listened to. But the intention behind music, I think, has slightly changed a little bit. There is honestly still music that will engage and will be interesting and will challenge people, but the way that these algorithms work and the way that I think Ghastly is describing here, the music is simply meant to engage the TikTok algorithms and gain more following and gain more notoriety, in a way that the music becomes less and less authentic and more to appease the algorithm and to make sure that their song gets pushed as much as possible to as many eyes and ears as possible, disregarding entirely the musicality, the creativity, the interest of writing clever things or writing interesting things. To replace this musical FOMO with an attentive and patient ear that allows artists to express themselves openly and without any requirements outside of what their soul is willing and comfortable to share. I think artists just need to focus on their art. I think that would breed a healthy existence of interesting creative art where the soul of the artist is allowed to breathe and to be free and to share the most interesting part that makes them them. And of course, that's not to say that you can, just completely not do that anymore. I mean, you can obviously post more and post whatever you want, but to say that the emphasis now seems to be more on the shareability of the entertainment over the actual art itself seems to be the direction that it's headed. The art is getting superseded by the medium that the art is being platformed. So what I mean by that is that content for the art is more important than the art itself, because in order to get your art out there, it needs to be marketed, it needs to be shared, it needs to be seen and heard. And so the medium to get those eyeballs and ears to the content is this machine, is this car. That is the engagement, that is the tweets, that is the, you know, the TikToks, the everything like that. That's the vehicle that transports the content to you. But the emphasis now, instead of being on the passengers in the car, is the car. And I think that's where the problem lies. That's all I got. Peace and love. G. I share these sentiments with Ghastly. We're so into a new space that it's hard to understand where we are in it. We need that outside perspective, and that just comes, I think, with time. And so I think with enough time, we'll get a better understanding of what this post means. And I think, in my opinion, it would get worse before it gets better, but I think it will get better. And I think art is always evolving and always changing, and there will always be people who challenge art and make something interesting that is worth listening to. And I think a lot of these artists as well that see this will understand that as well. But who am I to say, right? I'm just some guy on the internet, but I just wanted to share my thoughts. So if you enjoyed the video, give yourself a round of applause. If you liked the video, please go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Please go ahead and like the video. I like posting stuff like this and talking about, you know, things like this that get me interested in, you know, talking about art and about music. I like talking about a lot of records. I like talking about technology, just whatever intrigues me at the time. But until then, thank you guys so much. Hopefully you have a good rest of your day, and peace out, peeps.